Things are not looking so great for the Democratic Party. This, according to a new poll done by the Washington Post and ABC News. They found that not only are Democrats incredibly unpopular with the electorate at this moment, the approval ratings for President Joe Biden are also pretty low. So among registered voters, the GOP advantage goes to 51% versus 41% for Democrats, a historically strong result for Republicans on this measure. In fact, this is the largest margin in 40 years. Now, if elections were held today, writes the Washington Post, 46% of adults overall would back the Republican candidate for Congress, and 43% would support the Democratic candidate. And in regard to Biden's approval rating, it is not looking so great. His overall approval rating now stands at 41%, with 53% saying they disapprove. Those who say they strongly disapprove of the way he has handled his job represent 44% of adults. 45% of independents strongly disapprove of Biden's performance, as do 48% of suburbanites and 44% of white college graduates. Now, if you're wondering why they're specifically citing those demographics, it's because it was those people, those demographics that handed Biden his presidential victory. So the fact that his approval rating is slipping and sliding among those voters is not a good sign for Biden, and certainly not a good sign for the Democratic Party leading up to the midterms in 2022.
Okay, so let's break this down. So first of all, part of the reason why Biden's numbers are slipping so much is not because he's losing the right wing. He never had the right wing. He's losing Democrats and independents now. So that's really obvious if you're in the news analysis business. And not only is it obvious, it's in the numbers, there's no question. In fact, here, let me tell you, his support among Democrats in the beginning, they were super hopeful that he was gonna do the things that he said, was at 94%, understandable, it's his own party. It's now down to 80%, so he's lost 14 points even among his own supporters. Why? Well, when they ask him, they say it's because he's not doing anything.
Right.
Now, among independents, it's far worse. Let me read you graphic 5 here. About 7 in 10 independents say Biden accomplished little or nothing. Just over 2/3 of Democrats say Biden has accomplished a great deal or a good amount in his presidency so far. Still, that means nearly 1/3 of Democrats say Biden has not accomplished much or anything during his first 10 months. That's because the only thing he passed was a COVID relief bill, and now he's passed a corporate-backed bill and made sure that the most popular provisions in Build Back Better are not even in Build Back Better, let alone the fact that it's not even gonna pass. It's not even being discussed or debated in the Senate. And by the way, today's November 15th. They were supposed to vote for it in the House. Now that it's corporate Democrats, no pressure at all. When it was progressives, intense, unbelievable pressure to cave in. Now corporate Democrats, nothing, don't even worry about it. So the polling indicates Democrats and independents are pissed at Biden for not doing anything.
Right.
What do they say on TV? Oh, he's doing too much.
That's exactly right, yeah.
We just showed you a clip earlier in the show, Jake Tapper saying, hey, isn't he passing too many bills? When the polling shows the exact opposite.
But he's specifically referring to bills that would improve Americans' lives, right? Because remember, there are only 2 bills that Biden has passed, right? One, he just signed into law today, and that's the bipartisan infrastructure bill. That's a corporate handout bill. Privatizes public infrastructure, has all sorts of public-private partnerships, which means government grants and contracts will be awarded to private corporations. So, all right, I don't really see how this is something that's gonna overwhelmingly lead to a ton of money in the pockets of ordinary Americans and then lead to inflation. But nonetheless, the other one, of course, is the COVID relief bill, where you have tens of millions of Americans who are still unemployed, by the way, because of a pandemic. And because they feel, in some cases, uncomfortable going back to the service sector when many states don't have vaccine mandates and they're terrified of the Delta variant. But nonetheless, I want to specifically focus on the economy here, because what you hear in corporate media, very different from what voters are frustrated about. So look at this chart. This is graphic 6, a chart that the Washington Post put together. It shows how his approval rating, Biden's approval rating, has gone down on a few different issues, right? So even when it comes to the coronavirus pandemic, he started off strong, but his approval approval rating on that issue has gone down from 47% to 41%. Then you look at the economy though. The economy stands out the most because his approval rating on handling the economy is down to 39%. So 70% of the respondents in this poll rate the economy negatively, including 38% who say it is in poor condition. About half of Americans overall and political independents blame Biden for fast rising inflation, probably because that's what you hear over and over and over again on CNN, CNBC, any television corporate news, that is what you're gonna hear. That, there's inflation and it's Biden's fault. And more than 6 in 10 Americans say he's not accomplished much after 10 months in office, including 71% of independents. And you're right, Biden and the Democratic Party will learn all the wrong lessons because that is what their corporate donors pay them to do. They get paid to lose. And then when they're not in charge, when they're not in power, they fundraise handsomely off of fear-mongering about the opponents, about the other political party. They love it. It's a win-win for them no matter what. So you think they want to hold on to power? That's not who Democrats are. Democrats are losers, and we're seeing it play out in real time right now.
So let's talk a little bit more about corporate media propaganda, which by the way is almost all of the mainstream media. So, I mean, you turn on, you go to the New York Times or NPR, is it much better? No, they don't state facts either. They're all inflation, the narrative is don't pass any more bills because we're worried about inflation. But wait a minute, is that what the polling indicates? Anna just read it to you. 6 in 10 Americans say that Biden is unpopular because he hasn't passed enough bills. 6 in 10 Americans. So, but they all come out on cable news and say no. All of them, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all of them agree Biden's done too much. Whatever you do, don't pass any more bills. The rest of the bills would help Americans. Now, guys, I can prove this to you so easily. First of all, we already have, it's in all the numbers. You can read it for yourself. But secondly, isn't there a single editor at CNN that goes, guys, you keep saying, Jake Tapper says it, Anderson Cooper says it, almost all of you say it, that hey, if Biden passes more bills, he might become more unpopular because of inflation, etc. But if you look at the provisions, number one, the bill is popular by itself. I'm gonna get to those numbers in a second. But number two, lowering drug prices, 88% want to the provisions, specific provision in Build Back Better, that was for lowering drug prices. 88% are in favor of it. So 9 out of 10 Americans want it. So is anybody gonna say on our air that maybe if Biden passed a bill that 9 out of 10 Americans want, that would make him more popular? No, isn't that amazing, guys? Not a single person on CNN has said, yeah, if he passed a bill that about 90% of Americans want, it would make him more popular. Not one person has said that. They've all said the opposite. Now, do you really think that's news? Do you really think that has anything to do with facts?
And let me just add one more thing about the inflation argument that you'll hear them make over and over again, which is completely inaccurate. Look, think about what it would require them to do in corporate media to really weigh in on why there are inflation issues in very limited sectors of the economy. That would mean that they would have to talk about the labor shortage and what's really causing it. Maybe they'd even have to do some coverage on the John Deere strike. Maybe they'd have to do some coverage on the fact that there aren't enough truckers because people don't want to get paid a crappy wage for a job. And they don't want to talk about that, right? So to actually do coverage of the supply chain issues and how that's leading to inflation would require them to actually give a voice to labor in this country. And they're not willing to do that. So just blame Biden and the measly crumbs that he gave ordinary Americans in his coronavirus relief bill. That's the real problem, according to them.
All right, last couple of things here. Look, cable news never makes any sense and doesn't try to make sense. But the only way that it is logical is if you look at it from what do corporations in America want, then it all of a sudden, all of it makes sense, right? So for example, here's another thing that doesn't make sense. Just a couple of months ago, remember, CNN, everybody else was crying about, my border crisis. And why is everybody concerned about the border crisis? They're gonna come and take our jobs. They're coming to take our jobs. Now what are they complaining about? Labor shortage. Wait a minute, I thought they were coming to take our jobs. It turns out we can't even fill the jobs. Even with all of the immigrants that came in, even with your so-called border crisis, even with all the Americans who want jobs, we still have a labor shortage. We don't have enough people to fill the jobs. So Jake Tapper, CNN, and every other lying one of you guys out there, Which one is it? Which one is it? Is it they're coming to take our jobs, or we have a labor shortage? All right, and lastly, you got to know the real numbers. So, and what's amazing is the mainstream media will actually put it on A17 and then they'll never talk about it again. And that's what tells you it is propaganda. So here's from the Washington Post. 63% of Americans, this is graphic 9, 63% of Americans support Washington spending $1 trillion on roads, bridges, and other infrastructure, while 58% support spending roughly $2 trillion to address climate change and to create or expand preschool, healthcare, and other social programs.
Bury it. Make sure Jake Tapper doesn't see it. He doesn't like that kind of information.
So, every single cable news anchor who are almost all liars, there it is. At a bare minimum, 58% of the country, even after all the propaganda you guys did, even after all the times you said, don't vote for it, don't vote for it, it'll ruin the price of milk, y'all don't vote for it. Even after billions of dollars of propaganda you did against it, 58% say, no, we still want it. Now, is that what you're gonna hear on news? It's not just the past. You guys watch this video, then watch cable news, and you will see no one will quote that number. Instead, they will all come out in unison, and it doesn't matter where they're pretending to be on the political spectrum. Stephanie Ruhle on MSNBC is one of the worst in the business. CNBC is the single worst, worse than Fox News, okay? So all of them will come out in unison and say, the American people do not want this bill because of inflation. They do not want this bill. They'll lie to you about what the American people want, even though it's in their own poll. Because they're not doing news. They're the marketing arm of corporate rule. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.